We are back for our second season of At the Desk. To our returning viewers, you know the drill. To our new watchers, we cover all things crime, history, and politics. I'm your host, Evan Halfin, and in today's episode, we will be talking about the upcoming presidential election, the recent assassination attempts on former President Trump, and conducting a mock trial for Marie Antoinette. With that being said, come take a seat with us at the desk. Welcome back to ATD. To start us off, we will be sending it over to our politics panel to discuss the current state of the presidential race. Over to you, Yaya.
Welcome back to At the Desk Politics. So much has happened since you last saw us on your screens, so let's get right into it. At the end of May, Donald Trump was found guilty of 34 felony counts in New York. On July 13th, an assassination attempt was made on his life. He escaped with a gunshot wound on the ear. In a historic move, President Biden withdrew from the race, endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris. Since then, Harris has chosen her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. After all of the summer of chaos, the race will be one of the most hotly contested and controversial in recent memory. The ticket of former President Donald Trump and Senator J.D. Vance has had many strengths and weaknesses since its birth. So Jackson, tell me, how has the Republican ticket and party in general been faring?
Yeah, how much time do you have? There is just so much to talk about. So let's start with this. So late May, Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts. His polls numbers immediately surge. And the Democrats go into panic mode. They thought that this was going to shut him down. This made him even stronger. So they scheduled a debate, June 27th, against Joe Biden. Absolute disaster for Joe Biden. He stumbles. He looks like a dementia patient, probably because he is one. And yes, he has an absolutely horrible debate. And Donald Trump wins it almost unanimously. Even the liberal news outlets are saying Trump won. And so then the Democrats start thinking about, maybe we need to pull Joe Biden out. George Clooney comes out and says, Joe Biden needs to drop out. Other Democrats in Congress say, Joe Biden needs to drop out. He is not cognitively fit for office. And then July 13th happens. Donald Trump giving a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, the most important swing state in this entire race, and he comes 1 inch from death, and a firefighter is killed, a supporter of his. And all of a sudden, the liberal news networks are thinking, wait a minute, we've been comparing this guy to Hitler for the last year. And they had to come out and say, you know what, he doesn't deserve death. He doesn't deserve this to happen to him. And that kind of screwed them up again, and his poll numbers went up even further. And so then Joe Biden decides to drop out of the race later that month. And then I'm gonna give it over to one of you guys soon, but there's just so much to go over here. And yes, now it's Harris versus Trump, and the polls have tightened. But the nomination of J.D. Vance to vice president has been a controversial move. I'll say that. Let me last little point here. But yes, it's going to be a very, very tight race for sure, given what's happened with the Republican Party.
Francie? I've worked with you before, but I would just like to give you a formal welcome to At the Desk
Thank you, I
Politics.
appreciate it.
Talk to me about how has the Democratic Party been doing?
Thank you for that introduction. And before I say anything, Jackson, the next time that you say names, saying Biden is a dementia patient, I'd like to see some reports or information. Just come right off the bat.
He said he wants to beat Medicare.
I know it's come out that he has had cognitive decline. But just maybe a little bit of a background information on there. So let's start. What else do we have going within the next couple of months? I'm back on. Let's see. Let's get this started. So as we've seen, the Democratic Party has gone through many significant shifts for the past couple of months. It starts off with Joe Biden stepping down, as you stated. And that ultimately, I feel as though, was because of his poor performance at the presidential debate that happened in June. I will not go against what you said. I think it was a poor performance. But, of course, as that time went on, a lot of people came out and told Joe Biden that he is unfit to run for president. And as we saw, he took that lead and he stepped down. And then, of course, Kamala is in the running. She received enough endorsements, and Tim Walz then became her VP. But the Democratic National Convention, I think, was something that we can all highlight on, and I think the Republican National Convention is also something we can talk about. Those two conventions, I don't know if you watched them or paid attention to what was going on. They definitely had energy at both. We saw many influential people come up and speak. Hillary Clinton, we saw Michelle Obama at the Democratic National Convention. But then, in all, I just wanted to say the Democratic Party now is really focusing on the swing states, and they are moving throughout this country from rally to rally, trying to grasp as much voters as they can, because Kamala, she's trying to get those young voters going, and she's trying to hit all the points from her economic opportunity initiative that she's got going forward. But I'll leave it at that. And I think at the end of the day, it's policy.
Wow.
A lot of info, isn't it?
I mean, I just woke up. I just woke up. I mean, it's 8 o'clock at night, and that.
I'll get you coffee next time.
Yeah, please. That just
I'll get
woke
you a
me up.
Monster.
Wow. That woke me up. I
Not
mean,
at the same
your
time.
reaction. Wow.
At
Well,
the same time.
the only thing I have to say is great job giving your dueling opinions, looking at it straight down the middle, which I always like to do. I have to say that I like to read not the national polls, as you like to mention, but the polls in the specific states. Just about everything is within the margin of error except for Minnesota. So with that being said, the debates, say what you want about the one with Biden, say what you want about Joe Biden, say what you want to say about the debate with Kamala Harris, say what you want about the endorsement from Taylor Swift and the Liz Cheney on the other side as well, say what you want about that. This is a race, and this is going to come down to 500,000 people. And these people maybe take in 5 minutes of news via TikTok a week. You know what we're looking for here? The uneducated voter that does not watch CNN or Fox News all day, and that's going to decide this race. Debates, rather you do it through the commission, or rather you do it through a specific network, rather you yell and scream and cry about it depending on which day, which network, who's moderating it, whatever, that's not deciding this race. So we need to look at where campaign funding is going, and we need to put it within those 500,000 people if we are the Trump campaign or we are the Harris campaign, and that is in these states of Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota, Virginia, Iowa, Arizona, and Jackson, I want to hear what you have to say about this. The Sunshine State of Florida is within 5 points in the polls.
What do you have to say about it?
Crazy.
Trump-
Let's get to Jordan
Trump's
first.
winning it, but yeah, we'll get to Jordan.
Yeah, I think all you guys bring up really great points, and one of the things I think we can all agree on here is that this is a very big race. This is a very big election. There is a lot to look at on the ballot, and I think, Ryan, you're really right about that whole where are our voters getting their information, because we're a little different. We check the news, we read the news, but you can't assume most people are doing that. They need to really be putting a lot of focus and work into their campaign strategies on social media. How are you going to get to young voters? How are you going to encourage people who don't typically vote or aren't even registered to vote to want to care and want to get involved? Because, I mean, a big part of, being an American citizen and having that freedom is using your right to vote, which I think is a big part of, right now, a big push on campaigns is just making sure people are registered to vote. But I agree with you guys. A lot has happened since they've last seen us here at the desk, and it's really had a big impact on the polls. And at one point you think Trump's going to win because Biden isn't doing great. And then Biden drops the race. And now Harris is here. And the assassination attempts, a lot has happened. And we're sitting here now seeing a very tight race. And they're really going to have to pull all the stops to want to win it.
Right. I want to take us back a little bit, Jackson, before I let you continue. And
He's excited.
Defend
I'm about to
Florida.
say.
I'm so excited for this energy. So Joe Biden drops out of the race. Let's do a quick show of hands. Who thought that Joe Biden dropping out of the race was a bad idea?
Are you talking about face value or now?
Face value.
Face value?
Whoa,
Show of hands. show of
Wait,
hands,
I'm
show of
gonna-
hands.
I'm gonna-
Are you asking
Oh,
for
bad
a bad idea in the sense of
For the Democrats.
Okay, no, it was a good idea for the sense of Democrats.
I think
Right,
it was
so-
the best
well,
decision.
you
I
said
think
Joe
it was
Biden.
a good idea for the universal.
Well, but that wasn't the question. The question you were asking, and I'm biting my own bullet here, was at the time, did you think it was the right idea?
Yeah. And
No,
listen,
I thought it was
let's
wrong.
at the-
I'm
you
going to
thought it
admit, I was wrong. I thought it was too late. I was wrong. I was wrong. I misread the momentum. I misread how much, again, as I mentioned, 500,000 people can be swung and put back in. I was wrong. I thought it was too late.
Ryan, were you
wait,
paying
hold-
attention to how many people were coming out and telling him?
Absolutely. I was
Yeah.
working for my local congresswoman, Mikey
As you
Sherrill,
should.
who's on the news all the time.
Yes, sir.
And she was saying he needs to drop out. But in my head, I was like, it's too late, and this is going to cause internal chaos. I was wrong. But I think, to be honest with you, it wasn't a bad thought. it couldn't have been a bad thought that it would have caused internal chaos, because we're looking at people like Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro. We were looking at an internal fight where these are key weeks where you could be picking up voters for your party. So I thought that maybe it wasn't the best strategy. And you know what? I was wrong.
And there are not many people in this world, in this industry,
Yeah.
who would admit that. I thought it was a great idea. I was
agree.
among those people that was saying he cannot run because
Especially after the debate
And I also
the
thought-
debate was disastrous. And for
Yeah.
me, it just looked really selfish on Biden's part that he was refusing to step down when all these conversations
And he was
about
being
his
told
age,
that. He was
about
being
his
told
mental
that.
cognition,
Well, let's
your
ask the question.
peers
Let's
are
ask the
telling
question
you.
here. How many votes did Joe Biden receive in the primaries?
He received 14 million votes.
How
but
many-
that-
how many did
Hold on,
Kamala
time
Harris
out. I don't
receive?
want to go down that road because that doesn't work. That really didn't change anything. Let's go down a different road. I just want to say really quickly, not only, I thought it was wrong, and yes, I was wrong for thinking that it was wrong for him to drop out, but alluding to what you were going to go down to, which I don't think we have to go down to, is the fact that it would have caused internal chaos because Kamala Harris, polls-wise, was not doing too much better than him
Yeah.
in terms of confidence. She needed to build that confidence. I wasn't so confident she was, and this is going to sound horrible, and I apologize. And I'm probably shouldn't be saying this, but I really thought that it wasn't a great idea to put a woman up against Donald Trump just because of how dangerous and fierce he is on something like a debate stage, and because of the way he shows respect, and because of how well he took it with Hillary.
I had the
I
same
was wrong.
thought. I had the same thought
I
as
was wrong.
you. But I had different concerns. I had concerns of the backlash she was going to receive because I wasn't sure if America was ready for a woman president, and I had the same concerns as you as how she was going to fare against Donald Trump. But I think the nomination of Kamala Harris rejuvenated so many Democratic voters, especially the young people, because
Yeah.
I had so many conversations with my friends, and they were like, I'm not voting. If it's Donald Trump and it's Biden, I'm not voting.
Yeah.
And with Kamala stepping in, that gave people so much more hope on the Democratic side. Jackson, I do want to actually, no. Jackson, put a pin in it. Sorry. We're going to come back to you right after Jordan because Jordan wanted to say something really quickly, and then we're going to go Jackson.
Yeah, because one of the things, whenever the first presidential debate was happening between Biden and Trump, the thing that really hit me the most was it didn't feel like we had two candidates that wanted to be president because they had great ideas for the country and they wanted to lead us into a great place. It kind of felt like it was two candidates who was like, well, I don't want this guy to win, therefore I'm running because I want to win. And that rubbed me the wrong way. We want candidates that have strong beliefs into what they want the future of our country to look like. And I think once Joe Biden had stepped down, especially because after that debate performance, it wasn't great. And I think the Democratic Party was losing a little bit of faith in him. Once he stepped down, and now that we have Kamala Harris in there as the candidate, I think it comes back to now, oh, it's not I want to beat the other guy. Well, that's part of it. It's here's what I believe I want the future of the country to look like. And I think Biden jumping out refocused that belief.
Jackson, you can unpin it, and then we'll go to Francie.
Okay, so I got a lot to say. So I want to talk about the conventions real quick, actually.
Yes, please do.
So should we be calling it the Democratic National Convention or the Trump Derangement Syndrome Convention?
I
Say
think
that
that goes
again?
both sides.
Trump
Before
Derangement
you start
Syndrome
pointing fingers, let's
Convention.
be honest.
Trump?
Let's be
Yes.
honest. Let's be honest.
Let Jackson finish. Because
Okay.
this is an interesting point.
Did you make popcorn?
Donald Trump
wish
was
I
mentioned thousands of times at this convention. I think he was mentioned more times than any of Kamala Harris's policies. All they did was talk about how terrible he was. They talked about Project 2025, which has been proven false. They talked about his national abortion ban.
False how?
Proven false. His connection to it has been disproven. The Heritage Foundation
Okay,
has
yes.
come out
I thought you were
and said-
discrediting that Project 2025 existed.
Oh, it is
we were going
real.
to have a problem.
Oh, it is
We were
real,
gonna
but
have
he
a
does not
problem.
support it. It's been proven he does not support it.
Yes.
And so they went up there, they lied about him the entire convention. And look, I'll give him credit. It was a good strategy for getting votes. Was it an honest strategy at all? No. But the Republican National Convention seemed to be more about Trump in the sense that they're getting all behind him and they're coming behind him because he got shot. He took a bullet for this country, nearly died. And they want this guy to be president because they know he truly cares about this country. And that was the sense I got from both conventions.
And
I like your thing of like them talking about Trump and everything, and you didn't hear as much policy. I can agree with you on
I
that.
agree with you
but
there
are
too,
we
yeah.
really going to knock the Democrats on policy when Donald Trump himself said that he doesn't have plans, he has concepts of a
Well,
plan?
yes, we are, and I'm going to tell you why. This was another thing I didn't love about Kamala Harris, was her policies, quite honestly, face value, don't make sense. A lot of it's not feasible. And we saw this coming. I'm actually helping you out here. We saw this coming when she took the mantle. I wasn't a fan of some of her proposed policies that, quite honestly, aren't achievable. Now, I'm not defending Donald Trump's policies. Rather, his stances on
Or
abortion.
lack of.
His stance on abortion makes no sense. His tariff situation, let's not even get into it. But I didn't love what she had compared to him. But she has really boosted my confidence in terms of unifying the country. And that's why I really like some of the things that Kamala has done.
Francie, go ahead.
Two things. Number one, I would agree she and like I'm pretty open about how I feel about on certain things. Kamala's plan with the housing, I don't know if you go into the nitty gritties of it, it's unfeasible because where is this money coming from, right? And
The Obama
you can talk to
administration
economists, you can talk to people, you can read about it. The Washington Post posted this quite a bit ago when the taxes on tips came out. And it wrote, the practical impact on tips could cause the government at least $10 billion to $15 billion each year in lost tax revenue, according to the Nonpartisan Committee for the Responsible Federal Budget, the CRFB. Yale analysis found that at least 37% of tip workers already don't pay federal income tax. They don't earn enough each year, and they wouldn't be helped by exempting some income taxes. That was just, you brought up a point, and then that was something Kamala and Trump both are very actively talking about right now. Trump proposed that policy kind of go first. Kamala liked it. She kind of went off of it, maybe for more voter attraction, maybe for things in the past. But I feel like what people are lacking nowadays is this ability to learn about what these candidates are saying, where we see it going, and even if it's feasible.
Right. Kamala mentioned hers.
And that goes across the board.
Right.
And I could talk all day about things I think Trump has said and things I think Kamala has said. But when you started talking about policy, whatever, it made me think of
or lack of.
Concepts of.
Yeah.
The tax on tips and how both of these candidates are using this as an in for voters, but are we really seeing a benefit? It's like, it's attractive to the eyes of some people who don't fully understand it, and then it's like, let's get to the nitty gritty, let's bring the facts out. What does this actually mean for our country? Is there a benefit, or are they both just saying something because they want to get voter attraction?
Right, and I want to bring it back to what you said about how some of these proposals, when they're taken at face value by people who aren't really politically active, that aren't checking the New York Times every morning when they wake up, that aren't taking the Associated Press as they wake up, that don't really have concepts of how the American government works at its core, the policies don't really hold water. Kamala talked about giving tax breaks to small businesses, which sounds great. She was in Philadelphia. 99.6% of Pennsylvania's businesses are small businesses.
Right.
So that's a good appeal to a large constituency in Pennsylvania. But like Francie said, where is that money coming from? It's really hard in this day and age to hear what politicians are saying and to digest it and to really think about what that means, because they're throwing it at you at such fast paces with such large personalities that you just want to take it. You don't have any choice. You can't stop and you can't think.
And I also think Ryan and Jackson made really good points, because I feel like a lot of the election cycle right now isn't necessarily about coming up with feasible policies. It's more seems like, oh, let's attack the other side. Let's spend these conventions saying why the other candidate's not fit, instead of taking that time to say, here's a policy that we can actually do. Here's something we can actually achieve. Because, yeah, they're putting a lot of ideas out there, and surface level, they sound great, but when you really dig into it, it's not possible. And that's my biggest issue. We need to have policies that are going to work, and that's what they should be spending their time thinking about, not calling each other childless cat ladies or weird.
Right, and can I say something, too, is that Donald Trump has two beats, and this is what he works off of. Ask him a question about January 6th, ask him a question about Rosie O'Donnell, ask him a question about anything. It's always, well, the border, and then he makes up some random number in the millions about people who crossed it.
And then it gets fact-checked, and then everyone's like,
and they're eating cats.
He says they come from Venezuela, he says they come from China, he says they come from everywhere. So he's always talking about immigration, and he's always talking about the border. He's got two big hits out, and then the other hit, too. So immigration and border is one. His other hit is crime. And we cannot understand.
You're missing one. You're missing one.
All right, go ahead. Tell me.
Inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation.
Oh, yeah, he talks a lot about inflation. But in that debate, all we saw was those two hits. Everything was about that. He was asked about January 6th, crime, the border. I mean, it was the same two hits. And, you know, people at home want to know about things like inflation. People at home did not want to hear things about cats. People at home wanted to hear about the grocery store. People at home, well, at least people like me and my generation, which is a statistic I sent all of you that I can't remember off the top of my head, want to hear more about how we're going to save the climate. And Donald Trump has two hits, and he keeps hitting them, and we've heard him since he announced his candidacy going down those escalators.
Jackson, you're going to wrap up for us.
Okay, yeah. So Donald Trump, he likes to hammer immigration because of how poorly the Biden administration has handled legal immigration.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the right facts, so why is he even bringing it up? He's
No,
embarrassing
here's the thing. So the numbers right now say around 8 million legal immigrants have crossed. Around
Not
8 million.
21.
But he says 20. When a college campus reports how many sexual assaults there are every year, they say 20. But you know there's more. It's one of those things. You know there's more than there actually get reported.
So
you know there is.
But
what
to
makes
your
you think
point,
that
how does that
Biden's not
answer any
reporting
other
it correctly
question?
versus when Trump's in office? I'm kind of a little bit confused on your claim that in one setting it's all everything's fair and accurate, and then the next setting it's all.
And we can.
How can you blame the system when the system is both sides?
That's a beautiful.
They can
I'm sorry,
make-
Jackson. There's a little.
Vice
there's some
President
holes
Harris and
missing
Joe
in your
Biden
claim.
can make an executive order and they can send troops down to the border and they can shut down the border if they want to.
Right.
If they truly wanted to make border security, they
Why
could just
why
do
did
it.
Trump?
But what about the
That's
bill
the
that
border,
Trump
the
canceled?
border was
That's an
significantly more secure under
we also
Trump.
had a
That's an
pandemic.
economic. That's
We
an,
also had a
that's
pandemic.
no. Closing down
Was
the
that
border.
Trump's fault?
No, closing
No,
down the
but
border.
that's maybe why the numbers were a
We
little
have
much
to wrap
lower.
up. We have to wrap up. But
Couple
I would just
years
like to
before
say,
that.
closing the border the way Trump thinks about it has never historically worked. Period. End of the story.
Right.
He
And
wasn't
to your last point.
Office.
Talking about immigration, I can understand that that's his big running issue. But when you're being asked questions that have nothing to do with immigration and you somehow bring it back to immigration, that just makes you look like a weak candidate. That is all the time we have left for today. I'm so happy that our first episode of Politics Panel has gone off to such an electrifying start. There are just 48 days until America chooses her leader for the next 4 years. After that, politics will, obviously, be following every twist and turn closely. And we hope you, the public, will join us. We'll see you next week at the desk. Back to you, Evan.
Thanks, Yaya. Stay tuned for our crime panel as they cover the recent assassination attempts for former President Trump. We will meet you back at the desk. We are once again back at the desk. It's time to send it over to the crime panel to dive deeper into the recent assassination attempts. Take it away, Ryan.
Thanks, Evan. When we first created the schedule for this year, Donald Trump was not atop the crime list priorities. But now he is, and this time it's exactly for the reason you would think. Donald Trump is a lot of things. He's a former president, the Republican nominee for president for the third time in a row. He's a TV host of The Apprentice, a billionaire, a golfer, a convicted criminal, which is new, and after this weekend, a two-time target for potential presidential assassinations. That's a tongue twister. It all started with not one, but two major attempts to take the former president's life. Now, Savannah, tell us a little bit about divisiveness in politics, how it has really affected a situation like this and has put a target on people like Donald Trump.
Right, so as far as politics have been around, there's always been a mild, reasonable divide, but especially now more than ever, there has been such an uptick in this divisiveness throughout our nation's politics that has caused such a divide and such deep polarization. And I think a part of it is due to social media. It's easier to spread hate and misinformation, and it's easier to not find common ground within parties. And I think that due to this, it's been so much harder, and each side has been far more vocal, far more open about their hatred. And public figures like Donald Trump, who are very controversial, you know, it puts a target on their back.
Yeah, I also want to touch upon with that topic, no matter what your political party affiliation is, no matter what president you like, the fact that a president almost got assassinated is just something to say about the country in and of itself.
Yep.
It is so scary that people think that it is okay to try to assassinate a president. We haven't had that in so long. So I was personally very upset when I heard about this, and that's my speech on that. I want to touch upon the Secret Service and kind of the federal agency's response to this assassination attempt. Point blank, complete, utter failure. Failure on the Secret Service. So the fact that Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle resigned from her position because of this failure. So she claimed that there was no Secret Service agents on that roof that Thomas Crooks was on because it was a sloped roof. Now, I had an internship this summer with the ATF, federal agency, and one of the agents was a past Secret Service agent. I was asking her, is this really a thing? And she looked at me and said, these Secret Service agents are some of the best trained in the entire world. I could stand on a slope roof. You can stand on a slope roof. Everyone can. There's no reason that an agent should not have been put on that roof. It was solidified from the inside, but they even said that that roof in and of itself is a target. So why wasn't there someone on that roof to begin with? Now, The Secret Service also didn't provide a written plan until 1:30, 30 minutes after the doors opened. Agents from all around local police agencies get there weeks in advance to scope out the area. This should have been a plan very well in advance. There's just no excuse for it. When a former president is coming in, there's no excuse. So, 5 p.m., they were aware of Thomas Crooks being there. No info was ever given to the people needed. They knew that there was a suspect in the vicinity. Donald Trump should not have even been able to take the stage at that point. Their one job is to keep the president safe. He should not even have been allowed to be on that stage. I mean, at the Taylor Swift concert, if there's a threat, Taylor Swift is not allowed to be on that stage. So why is it different with former President Donald Trump
example.
on that? I know. I'm just saying, on that stage. So 5 p.m. they were aware. 6:02, Trump takes the stage. At 6:09, people notice screams. The police encounter Thomas Crooks on the roof. People are screaming, person on the roof with a gun, person on the roof with a gun. I don't know if you've ever held an assault rifle, but you cannot go up on a roof, lay down, scope in your sights without anyone noticing. People knew he was on that roof, and they still did not, it was too late at that point. And then he took the shots. He took the shots at Donald Trump like he was. He was killed directly after, but that is just a awful job by the Secret Service. And then, last thing I want to touch upon, sorry I'm rambling, but after that...
I'm entertained.
After that, you see Secret Service agents trying to take Trump down from the stage. There was a lot of backlash. Listen, I want to work for a federal agency. I want to be a woman working for the federal agency. But there were women blocking Trump that were half of his height. They could not holster a weapon. And personally, I was also talking to the agent about this. She said there's individuals that are jobbed for that are 6'5", big men that are able to block the president. Listen, I want to be a female agent. I would not be the person equipped to block Donald Trump from a shooter. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. Sam, I mean, I completely agree with you. It was a complete failure on so many different fronts. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about Thomas Matthew Crooks, the person who did commit the crime. First of all, I also want to say I am from Pittsburgh. I live about 10 minutes from where this crime took place. I have walked those fairgrounds weeks, like just a few weeks before this happened. I knew people at the rally. I had friends who went. We were talking about it at work. So it hits close to home. But so I want to talk about Thomas Matthew Crooks. So he grew up in Bethel Park, PA, just downtown Pittsburgh. He was kind of middle class, upper middle class. There's not a ton of information about him, but he was definitely more on like the quiet side. There are some people who say he was kind of bullied in high school, maybe just for kind of the clothes he wore. He was definitely a little quiet, but there were never any like oh no, not this word. Disciplinary. Guys, no, I can't mess this up. He was never getting in trouble. He was never at the principal's. There weren't a ton of talk about that. And something else interesting, he was actually registered Republican, but recently was making donations towards more Democratic campaigns. So we can kind of assume that's probably where his political views kind of lied, whether that was his main motive or not. But that's kind of interesting. Another little fun fact, this is alleged, but it was said from an upperclassman in high school that he tried out for the rifle team, but he did not get it because of poor aim, which, I mean, he didn't have terrible aim. No. The situation.
And if Trump didn't go look at that thing, he would have nailed it.
He would have
exactly.
His aim was kind of spot on.
It was irony. It was ironic.
Essentially.
And kind of before the crime, he was just looking up a ton of weird stuff online. For example, he searched how far was Oswald from Kennedy, which we know Oswald is who assassinated John F. Kennedy. Just very weird stuff, very weird internet search history. And the day of the crime, he was supposed to go to work, and he ended up telling his coworkers that he had something to do and that he would return the next day. Also, when he went missing, his family put out they called the police. They were like, "Where is he? We're worried about his mental health." And he also had a ton of bomb parts in his car. So I always think that's kind of interesting because, like, did he have a bigger motive? Did he have a bigger plan? Obviously, he had the rifle up on the roof, but what was he going to do with all those explosive parts? Did he want to do a more terroristic attack on the entire, like, rally? Did he want to do a more, like, explosive situation? I don't know. And I think that kind of ties to, like, his motive is unknown. We can all speculate. It could have been political views. It could have been... he just wanted to kind of create this act of terror in this community. He also could have just had mental health problems and not kind of known how to deal with his anger. Maybe he wanted to make a big scene as he went out. I don't know. There's like so many things you can speculate. But I just think at the end of the day, kind of like you said earlier, Savannah, the violence in this country is just insane to me. Like, I know this has happened in the past, but like the way people handle emotions, whether it's like through the media or how it's televised, people just see things, and the way we, I don't know, handle our emotions or how certain people do things, like the violence is out of control, and we've seen this in so many other situations, and just not even with these like attempts.
Right, well, I feel like people have gotten so much more vocal now with like their platforms. People are able to express it so much more, and I feel like that's led to like fear and more hate even.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it to Megan in a second, but one comment I just want to make.
We'll get to you, Megan.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
Is even how people were reacting to this assassination attempt, I mean, it's not something to joke about. I mean, a person almost got killed. Like, people were saying, oh, I wish she got killed. No, like, that adds to the problem. You don't wish a death upon absolutely anyone, even if you hate him or whatnot. Sorry. Yeah.
Welcome. This is your first appearance. Welcome to Assassination.
I am so excited to join y'all here. I've been loving it so far. Now, I want to pick up off of everything that y'all have been mentioning. But one thing that I feel like we are not talking about enough is the local law enforcement and what they did.
Yes.
Because
I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, how dare ya? So, when it comes to the local law enforcement, they picked up on everything. You are looking at the timelines, you are looking at everything that is happening on that day, and local law enforcement has something to do with it. They are ringing in and going over the radio saying, there's somebody on the roof, there's suspicious activity around here. They are making it so land clear for the Secret Service to do what they are appointed to do.
Their job, basically.
They're doing their darn job. And local law enforcement was behind a majority of it, especially the first shots that were towards Mr. Crooks. Local law enforcement, the secret security had to reposition. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting so heated. And the Secret Service did not really consider where Crooks ended up being as that big of a target almost for him to get up there. But we're also not mentioning how Crooks was able to get a drone up there for 11 minutes prior to the rally.
You're hitting all the points.
Yeah.
Nobody's noticing, hey, why is there a random drone above a somewhat controversial rally? Like, that is a threat.
Yeah.
And Secret Service just didn't hit the pin with this one, and I just want to throw it back to you on how you feel law enforcement did better than the Secret Service.
I mean, local law enforcement agencies did in this situation, and by the way, I want to say, I want to work for the federal government. I'm not hating on the federal government in general, but the Secret Service failed. Local law enforcement agencies, they were ringing in, and that just shows you, is it corrupt? Is there some other motive as to why that information didn't get brought to the people needed? I don't know, but local law enforcement agencies did an utmost amazing job doing what their job was. They're not trained to guard the president. That's not their job in this situation. Their job is to keep the people at the rally safe. I also want to pay tribute to that firefighter that lost his life.
Is this my turn to say the name?
Go. Yeah.
Corey Comparator, fire chief of Buffalo Township.
Yeah, he lost his life. So it wasn't just a shot at the president. They killed a father, they killed a son, they killed an amazing fire chief. It's so unfortunate and so sad, and it could have been avoided.
Well, Sam, I feel like it reflects so poorly on our nation. For one, it's so scary and like it makes us look incredibly weak.
Yeah.
And then for starters, it just shows that we're willing to tear each other apart for these divided views.
Right, both Kamala and Biden have come out and said violence is never the answer. Both parties, no matter what you believe, violence is just never the way to go. I mean, like you said, someone lost his life just for attending the rally. So I feel like no matter kind of what way you sway, like it doesn't involve that at all. Violence is just never the answer, and I feel like our country just has honed so into that, and it's absolutely horrible.
It's a really sad thing, and there was actually another assassination attempt that didn't follow through. That was that same night, or pardon me, same day, and then most recently over the weekend at Trump's golf course in Palm Beach County, there was another instance. We're not going to have time to get into that. That's why I think we should talk about it next week if you all don't object. But wow. A lot to unfold when it comes to the dangers of being a public figure these days. We saw Taylor Swift. Was it Taylor Swift who was escorted off stage? I believe it was.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. There was a lot of instances, not just with presidents, but public figures. And I think that attests to the amount of money that we don't put, the lack of money put into mental illnesses. Number one. Number two, COVID-19. Now, this is a very controversial statement, but I said something really controversial, and I haven't been canceled yet, so I'm going to try again.
Fingers crossed.
And yes, fingers crossed. You know what was worse than COVID-19? The way we reacted to it. That is really not beneficial for the future. And we're only seeing now how that's going to affect us in the future. That, and I can go on a hosanna about the different reasons why this could be an increased issue. But with that being said, you all made wonderful points. And that's all we have the time for today. As I said, it is very risky to be a public figure today. We're about a month away from Election Day to see if Trump will land himself back in the White House for a second term. Back to you, Evan.
Thanks, Ryan. Stay tuned for our history panel as they travel back in time to the year 1793, where Marie Antoinette awaits trial for immorality and treason. We will meet you back at the desk. We're back at the desk, and it's time for the history panel. And I think I can overhear Marie Antoinette powdering her face and adjusting her wig. Take us to court, Your Honor. I mean, Brandon.
Thanks, Evan. Howdy, folks. Hope you guys had a great summer. It's great to see you all. My name is Brandon Cuck, and welcome back to the history panel. This week's theme, judgment. I'm not going to be judging any of my fellow panelists based on who I like the most, and spoiler alert, it's me. But I'll be acting as a real judge, per se. Your Honor, Brandon, per se. Today on trial, we have Marie Antoinette, also known as Audrey Keller, and her defense attorney, Yewan. The prosecutors today, representing the people of France, will be our two newest panelists, Shay Iyer and James King. Hold on tight, because court is now in session. All right, guys. Welcome. Welcome. We're going to start out with some opening statements from both sides. Welcome to the show, by the way, Shay and James. Great to have you. We're going to start out with the defense. Miss Antoinette, lawyer, go right ahead.
Your Honor, the people. I am here today to show you all that Marie Antoinette is not the villain that history has painted her out to be. She was a young child thrust into the world of geopolitics with not a clue, far away from her homeland. And today we are going to clear her name and make sure nobody ever associates Marie Antoinette with frivolity, with immorality, with just downright hatred. Today, the name Marie Antoinette will be associated with vindication.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, Marie Antoinette, may it please the court. As the people of France fought for bread and flour, Marie Antoinette feasted in her chateau. As she gambled away the French treasury, the people of France paid for her choices. Despite coming from and marrying into wealth, she still wanted more.
Today in the courtroom, I'm joined by my co-counsel, Robespierre, a lifelong proponent of democracy and equality who has seen firsthand the negligence of the monarchy. Today, we the people of France want to hold Marie Antoinette accountable for her role in our suffering.
Let them eat cake.
Let her eat justice.
Find Marie Antoinette guilty.
Wow. All right. Defense team, your questions.
Marie, talk to me. Sure. Shaky, how did you feel being thrust in the royal world with all its politics and conniving at such a young age?
I mean, not great. Let's be honest, I was a pawn in the geopolitical game. I was married off at 14 as a political match during the Treaty of Versailles so that France could have an alliance with Austria. And then when I became queen at 18, sure, I was an archduchess before I came to France, But it's such a different level of power that I wasn't sure what I was doing with it.
And can we really blame you for the circumstances that you were born into? We can't. Did you feel that somewhere within the hate that you were receiving from the French people, was there an element of xenophobia that you felt?
Definitely. I mean, in history, my name has been changed from Maria Antonia to Marie Antoinette. My name, my identity was still not enough for them. Even with Louis, I was given a hand and I was not given a hand in French politics or the French political landscape because of my heritage.
Thank you. The opposing counsel has talked about your role in the French people's suffering. As queen, you weren't really expected to do much politically. Do you feel that your role in French internal and foreign affairs has been accurately stated to the book of history?
I don't. I believe that it's been a huge exaggeration. Again, because of my Austrian heritage, I had no real hold over Louis. I didn't have a huge hand in politics or forming the political landscape that France had at that time. My role in France's internal and also foreign affairs has been over-exaggerated. People accuse me of being a reckless spender. Some people call me Madame Deficit. But my expenditures did not substantially contribute to France's economic debt and economic problems. Those problems existed far before I became queen and was even married to Louis. And that's because of France's outdated tax system, the lack of a central bank. So while, yes, I spent on things seeming frivolous, if you look into the future, my actions and funding of artisan works built up France to be the cultural force that the 21st century sees us as. Even now, about 10 million people visit the Palace of Versailles every year. Now, by the way. And France brings in billions of dollars a year in tourism revenues. And honestly, my enemies have gotten very used to using me as a scapegoat for the decades of financial negligence that France dealt with. And it's lazy.
Lazy indeed. Lazy is the word. I would like to once again go back to something that my opposing counsel has mentioned, and they talked about you turning a blind eye to those suffering in France. But tell us about your philanthropic endeavors, because you were well known by the French people for actually being there and being in their presence and not tucked away in some grandiose palace like our opposition claims you were.
Sure, they say that I turned a blind eye to the plight of the peasants that I ruled, but I was regularly involved in philanthropic work. I frequently donated to charity. I established a home for unwed mothers, patronized Maison Philanthropique, a society for the aged, widowed, and blind. I frequently visited poor families and gave them food and money. History has made me out to be a villain that I'm not.
History has made her out to be a villain that she is not. And with that, the defense rests.
That was very heartfelt. You speak on wanting to clear your name of the frivolous spending that the history books have placed on you. However, is it not true that you did spend large sums of money on your personal luxuries?
It's true, but also keep in mind, I was a queen. We would have been criticized if not looking wealthy. Foreign countries would need to see France as strong, even though we were internally very weak. We don't need to enforce that impression of us.
Could these purchases have been smaller, do you believe? For instance here, I have a full renovation of the Petit Trianon, costing over 2 million livres. I have also a purchasing of the Chateau de Saint Cloud, costing over 6 million livres.
That was bought by Louis.
But were you not also involved in the purchasing?
I had a hand in renovations, yes, but I didn't buy the chateau. And keep in mind, some of those purchases created jobs.
Were those who were employed, were they paid equally? Were they paid fairly?
I mean, of the time.
Interesting. Let's move on here. Is it also true that you acquired a substantial amount of gambling debt?
Well, my mother introduced me to gambling in Austria as a child and insisted that my siblings and I learn how and become good at playing cards. Sue me.
That's what they're doing.
I know. That
We
was a
intend
joke.
to. Yeah.
Guys,
We plan on
guys, y'all hate me.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about where this money came from. The common people of France had to pay 10% of their total income in taxes. You speak on an outdated taxation system. What specifically stopped you and your husband from fixing this system?
Again, I had no hold over Louis. I could not control him on economic or social matters. Okay? Louis's ministers did not adhere to reform plans that would have reduced France's debt. I did not have a hand in that. The finance minister was blocked by the upper class who benefited from numerous tax exemptions from financial reform for an economically troubled France. But the real problem was between the finance minister and the foreign minister when they were discussing whether or not to be involved in the American Revolution.
Which my client had no hand in influencing, as opposed to what the rumors would say.
I become such a strong symbol and such an easy target as a figurehead of the French government, not to mention a woman with a hand in the political scene. The French people looked to me to direct their blame. I was an easy target.
When the public broke out and fell into a series of riots over the high price of flour and bread, the people were starving in the streets. You speak on your philanthropic actions. Had you no sympathy for them?
Of course I did. In fact, the let them eat cake saying it's not historically accurate. There's no evidence to say that I said that. It actually was used first against a queen in the 1600s, and then the philosopher Rousseau wrote an almost identical anecdote about a great princess years before I even entered France. The story existed long before I was queen and was tacked onto me almost 50 years after my death.
And I would like to remind the prosecution that Marie Antoinette did mention that during these times of famine, she personally would go and visit poor families and give them money and food, no charge, no strings attached.
During the famine of 1787, I sold the royal flatware to provide grain for struggling families. I was not the insensitive, heartless spender that history assures itself I was.
She's actually described as a doting mother who had a fondness for children because she was childless for so long. So how could this woman, who was so enamored with children who weren't even her own, be painted by history as a cruel and callous ruler?
But Miss Antoinette, is that a yes, that you were aware of these riots breaking out over the rising costs of bread and flour?
Yes.
Yet you still found it a priority to purchase your ball gowns.
Again, I wanted to make sure that France looked strong to outsiders. I am very interested in foreign policy coming as someone from a different heritage myself.
Yes, but spending over 6 million livres to do a renovation, did you need all that money put into your house when the common people of France were barely housed?
Once again, Madame Antoinette was patronizing artisans around France, creating a more robust merchant and artisan class within France. And again, she had not as much power as you would like to believe, as you want to believe that she did. So how is she going to control riots when her own husband won't even listen to her counsel, where she doesn't even have a choice to even speak to the legislators if she wanted to?
You speak on strength a lot about your country, and yet...
Are you talking about France or Austria?
France.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
We speak on the strength of France, and whether you had a hand in it or not, there was a substantial amount of expenditure of the French treasury, accruing a massive amount of debt, billions of livres, in fact. France faced twice the interest rates of Britain at the time. Was there any plan to fix this debt?
Again, as Marie Antoinette, as queen, I did not have a say or a seat on the table when these matters were being discussed. You should take that up with King Louis. Oh, you would, but his head's in a basket, sorry.
Well, Miss Antoinette, let's talk about what you did have control over. Now, you did mention in your direct examination that you were able to visit some families, help them out during the famine. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, did you visit every single family?
Not every single family.
Well, what about the families you didn't visit?
Objection, relevance. Will Joe Biden visit every family in America that's struggling with inflation and rising childcare costs? No, you would never ask that of him.
I'll allow it.
Your Honor, well, You didn't visit every single family, that's correct, right?
Yes.
And what about the families you didn't visit? Were they not suffering?
I don't know. I didn't visit them.
Exactly.
Let's shift gears to some matters of treason. You persuaded your husband to resist the abolition of feudalism. So you speak on having very little hand in the government and the policy making of your country, and yet you were very adamant about this. Can you speak on this at all?
I believed that it was a divine right for a king to rule.
Interesting. Now,
Which was a product of her circumstance, might I add.
thank you. Let's speak about the revolution itself. You and your husband attempted to flee to Varennes during the revolution, is that correct?
Yes.
I see that maybe didn't work out so well for you.
Well, no.
I see. What fueled your decision to try and flee?
We wanted to gain support against the uprising crowd.
And you saw that fleeing was the best way of doing this?
We were regrouping.
Interesting. You spoke earlier about your ties to Austria.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true that you were born in Vienna, Austria?
Yes.
Did your allegiances lie entirely with France during your time of rule?
Yes.
Did you ever funnel any French treasury funds to Austria?
Absolutely not. A, that is incredibly offensive, and B, there is no historical evidence to back that up.
And so you felt no loyalty to the country you were born in? Zero?
I became Queen of France. My loyalty changed.
Interesting.
Your loyalty changed, yet you still decided to flee when your people needed you.
Again, regrouping, gathering support.
Objection, I have to take issue with the matter your people needed you, because was it not just 2 minutes ago that you basically called her a selfish ruler, and if it's a revolution and people are uprising, isn't the whole point to kick her out? So how would her people need her when the very reason she's leaving is because the people don't want her there?
Well, Miss Antoinette still had the opportunity to redistribute her wealth. She still had the opportunity to listen to the people, to offer them food,
May
to
I?
help.
While they're calling for her head?
That is not within my jurisdiction. As a woman in that time, my wealth was not my own, it was my husband's.
It was also the people of Francis, correct? It came from their 10% taxation, correct?
Sure. But those are Louis's crimes, not my own.
All right, I'd like to enter open discussion part of this, which is not real in a court of law, but is there anything you guys would like to rebuttal against that was mentioned?
Yes! Oh my gosh!
Go right ahead.
It is very, very interesting how you keep talking about for the people, for the people. Girl, what people? You executed all the revolutionaries that came before you, and then got even more paranoid and executed anybody who would have anything to say negatively about you. If you were in a bad mood, if they were seemingly talking against the government in any way, you executed them.
Yes. Can we compare your 10 months of ruling France with Madame Antoinette's 19 years? Guess which one of them is called the Reign of Terror? Yours. Can you really say that, whatever you want to call it, an apathetic, incompetent monarchy is better than a tyrannical republicanism? Is there really any difference? How can you sit there and try and distance yourself and make a difference between you and our queen here when you're the one who called for people's heads to be chopped off? Last time I checked, Marie Antoinette was not the one sending executioners to chop kids' heads off.
This will be the last question you may answer.
Well, all I will say to that is that just because of actions I might have done in the future, they do not erase the circumstances that led me to commit these actions, which were the circumstances of Marie Antoinette's spending. And I also find it interesting that you mentioned that these were Louis's crimes, not yours, yet you still benefited from Louis's crimes. You still benefited from Louis's failed economic policy, and you never took the action to persuade him against it. However, two wrongs do not make a right.
You know what else will not be erased? The blood on the floorboards of the guillotines.
Or your closing statements. Do you have a closing statement for us?
Your Honor, the people. Today, we have sat here with our heads held high to prove that history has painted Marie Antoinette in such a dark and negative light, all because of the circumstances that she was thrown into, all because she did not come from the right place, all because she was a woman in monarchy with power, because they were frustrated with their failed government and they shifted the blame to somebody that was easy, somebody that they deemed as frail and weak.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
They say we shifted the blame onto the easy target. But let's ask ourselves, why was Marie Antoinette the easy target? Is it because she just married into wealth? Or is it because her actions, her boasting, her rubbing it in the face of the French people led to resentment, led to years of anger and held back contempt? And just when things were at their worst point, instead of sitting back and helping the French people, she decided to leave.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I've come to my decision. I find the defendant, we don't have a gavel, guilty on all charges.
What?
You will be sent to a life in prison and probably beheaded by Robespierre right here.
Misogyny.
Whatever.
Thank you guys for competing. You guys did a wonderful job today. And all right, folks, we hope you guys all enjoyed our little court session here today. Let us know who your thoughts on who you thought won in the comments below. Unfortunately, it is time for us to do what the French do best and retreat for the evening. We'll see you back here next time for another enthralling episode of the History Panel. Bonne journée, mes amis. Cheers. Back to you, Evan.
Oui, Brandon. Sadly, that is all the time we have for today. In the meantime, stay updated with ATD on all of our socials and let us know what you want to see us cover next. I'm Evan Halfin, and we will see you back at the desk next week.